Often blinded by the baggage of our history, trying to keep us in our place. Reliving moments better left, let go of misery. Change the rules we can't embrace. One face, one race. We are all the same beneath. One face, one race. Natural diversity.
Welcome to our segment on Wild New Year. Today I'm going to answer a question from our staff minister, Reverend Stephanie Stewart.
Looking at the size of New Dawn currently and seeing that you are the senior minister, you have a staff minister at your disposal, you have a solid practitioner corps that's engaged and involved, and you have more practitioners coming. In my experience, we are the type of center that is on the cusp of something. So my question to you is, what is your vision for growth for us in 2021?
Beautifully stated. So I think one of the things I want to reflect on as I answer this question is, what does growth mean to us today? Because in the past year, our world has changed drastically. And prior to that, when we looked at growth in a spiritual community, we looked at how many people showed up on a Sunday. We looked at how big was the building, what was the capacity. And those are the things we were looking at a year ago when we moved out of our building on South Parker Road. Today, in the online environment, that growth is very, very different. And so one of the things I want to point out is right now today, we're reaching more than twice the size of the audience that we had when we were in a physical location. And what my vision is, and the piece that I keep seeking and listening for that voice to guide me is, how do we grow this? How do we grow this online community? How do we expand exponentially and bring New Dawn to the foreground? And what I believe that's going to take is it's going to take some dedication from these groups and people you are talking about. It's going to take some creativity in how we come forth with this process. It's going to take some deepening of our consciousness for all of us who still here are part of that New Dawn community and support the New Dawn community and mission. And for me, it is that opening up to new ideas. It is that taking a risk, because if anything has been pointed out to me this past year has been the riskiness of stepping into technology that I didn't quite understand and wasn't quite comfortable with. So we look at the views and how many people tap into our messages. We love the fact that many people are sharing our messages, our quotes, our videos, and those are the beginnings of this. And the rest of this is just kind of coming forth in that messaging from Spirit. What other avenues do we need to choose, and what other avenues do we get to step up to? So that may seem a little vague, it may seem a little too out there still. I haven't gotten the complete clarity on each specific step for growth. But we will begin this week with a visioning program with our board members, our leadership council, and we will begin that process of visioning on what it means to grow New Dawn. Please join me in prayer. As we just breathe into this moment, this space, this time right here and right now, we do so recognizing God in all things. As we consider the Godness in all life, we see God evidenced in so many places, in so many areas, in nature, in our lives, in our activities, in all of our affairs. And what we know is we know that we are one with God. We know we are connected to God, in God. And so we just affirm this message, this truth for us right here and right now, that God is everywhere present and we are connected to God. We are one with God. We are united. We just allow that to reassure us and comfort us. And so we turn our attention today by opening our hearts and our minds to this message and to all of the things that come forth and what actually can serve each and every one of us. I call this time perfect. I call it blessed. And by God, it is already done in the mind of God. I simply affirm it by letting go, letting God. And so it is. I was at King Soopers the other day. One of the things I appreciate about going to the grocery store is the fact that they don't move stuff around too often. If the item I'm looking for is always in aisle 6, then the item I'm looking for is always in aisle 6. And on this particular day, I was in the frozen foods department. And I don't buy a lot of things in the frozen foods department, but something was speaking to me and I was looking for it. And I walked down the aisle and I stopped and I turned to the right where the little freezer door is. And the item I was looking for wasn't there. In fact, there were some very different products in that space. And I found this a little peculiar, and so I kind of walked along the aisle looking to see where the product was I was looking for. By now, my brain was kicking into gear about why is King Soopers rearranging the grocery aisle? I walked all the way down, I walked all the way back, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so now the dialogue had begun in my head. I'm sure you've had this happen, where I'm thinking about the conversation I'm going to have with people in the management role at King Soopers about why would they rearrange the frozen foods department. I finally gave up. I pushed my cart around the aisle, came down the other side, and there to the right of me, behind the freezer door, was the item I was looking for. I had been in the wrong aisle all along. How curious is that? But it leads into today's talk. We are in the month of January. We are talking about timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision. And today's talk title is Grounded Beyond the Beginning. I was in the wrong aisle because I wasn't grounded. And when we say that term, grounded beyond the beginning, it kind of brings a whole lot of messages with it, but it's talking about always being grounded, always being in that place that we choose to be in. So how can you avoid reacting to and responding to all of the things that are going on around us? I found this quote by LL Cool J. When adversity strikes, that's when you have to be the most calm. Take a step back, stay strong, stay grounded, and press on. I think we've had our share of adversity in the past months, and it's something that can derail us. But if we can remember to stay calm, to stay strong, even remind ourselves of that power within us, we can keep moving on. I'd like to take a moment and talk about the meaning of grounded, because sometimes we use terminology in science of mind that everyone isn't familiar with. And when we talk about being grounded, we also talk about awareness, consciousness, mindfulness. But I learned a meaning for the word grounded when I was about 16 years old. I got grounded. I had gotten into trouble. And the thing about it was I not only got into trouble, I got caught. And my parents didn't know what to do, so they grounded me. And back in the day, and I don't know if parents still do this today, but back then, when you got grounded, you lost all your privileges. You lost all your freedom. I couldn't talk on the phone with my friends. I didn't get to watch television. I didn't get to go to any school events. I was restricted to a space, my bedroom, for a period of time. I wasn't having any fun, and I was miserable. But there's a piece of that process that I missed at the age of 16. It offered me an opportunity to relax. It offered me an opportunity to reflect, probably on the error of my ways. It offered me time to be quiet, to sit, and to contemplate. And that's the piece of being grounded that we want to focus on. because many of you are very aware of the fact that for the past year, we have been in that space, in that place of having more time to reflect, to meditate, to pray, if you will. So the word I want to use today is mindful. And this came up for me a few days ago because I was sitting at my dining room table and I was eating something, and I was noticing not only the flavor in my mouth, but the textures. And I became very mindful. How often have you sat down and eaten a meal or rushed off eating a meal and you never remembered even eating it? Let's take some time this week and really focus on that idea of mindfulness. And how I know that this doesn't show up for us as often as it could is pretty simple. When was the last time you walked into a room in your house and you stood there and you couldn't remember why you were in that room? And so you walked back out, and a few minutes later you remembered, and you went back to get whatever it was you were looking for. I did that the other day. I did it 4 times in a row. It was really kind of crazy. But every time I would get upstairs, I would think, okay, I don't remember why I came up here. Being mindful means that we are here now, we're in this present space, and we're paying attention to what's around us and what we're doing. Another place where we fail to be aware, where we fail to be mindful, is driving the car, which is really frightening to think that we're unconscious sometimes. But you can leave your home and go somewhere, and all of a sudden you're driving down the street and that wasn't where you were headed. Or you get to a place and you can't remember the trip, the actual drive to that place. So being mindful, being conscious, being aware is really, really important to us. Remembering that we are one with God, remembering that we are a part of that whole process of life and experience, helps us to stay in this place of mindfulness. We are living and loving and recognizing ourselves and how we do this dance called life every minute of every day. Don't you want to remember it? Don't you want to consider it later? Years and years and years and years ago, I got married for the first time. And I was so nervous, and I was so freaked out over all the people that were downstairs in the big, huge sanctuary. But I wanted to be sure that I could put this event in my memory, that I could remember every minute of it. I didn't even know anything about science of mind at the time, but I went and sat in the corner and I took a bunch of deep breaths and I just kept focusing on what's happening with me right now, because I wanted to remember. We talk a lot today about how quickly time flies, how all of a sudden the entire month is over and we don't know what happened to it. And part of that is because we're going at a very fast pace, but part of that is because we're not mindful in the moment. We're not taking the time to be present. We as religious scientists have a bit of an advantage, in my opinion, because we have all of the teachings of all of the philosophies. We have all of the key ingredients from all of the major religions. We have science and metaphysics, and we have all of these things at our fingertips. We can read messages of the Bhagavad Gita, or we can tune into something from Martin Luther King, or we can turn our attention to some of the other great leaders. We can look at Muhammad and Buddha, Jesus the master teacher. We have incorporated all of that into our philosophy. And so knowing all of that, we should be a little bit more equipped to move forward and to turn away from the chaos and the crises that are happening around us and focus on the things that we choose to bring into our reality and be more mindful. Lao Tzu says it this way: the key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. We are developing a deeper consciousness. We are expanding on that conscious nature of who we are. And we can only do this by being alive, awake, aware. We can only do this by being mindful. If you're not sure where to start, a really great place to be mindful is how you wake up every morning. I watch my dog Lotus, and she's usually in bed with me and under the top cover. And about the time she starts to wake up, about the time it's time for us to start getting up, her body starts twitching and she starts making all kinds of racket. And then she scoots till she can get her head out from under the covers, and she starts to yawn. And she yawns, and she yawns, and she stretches. And I have started watching her process. And I have started incorporating some of these behaviors, because you don't have to wake up and jump out of bed. Take time. Be mindful of the environment that you're in. Be aware of how you feel, what's going on in your body. Take time to stretch, to be in that place of awareness. We can bring our consciousness into these statements. Spirit is the only power. Spirit is divine consciousness. It is the only power there is. The great unity is life for all. When we really breathe that in and we really pay attention to that, it feeds our spirit. It touches us. Meditation and prayer are two of the best ways to maintain this mindfulness. Meditation, just take a few minutes to be quiet. Prayer, speak what's on your heart. Ernest Holmes says this: through the door of our own thought, we enter into universal consciousness, into a complete realization of life and truth, of love and beauty. And as we sit in the silence of our own souls and we listen, it will be the greatest thing that we will ever do. Please join me in prayer. And so as we just release this time and move into the next moment, we do so knowing that God is still present, that we are still connected, that the divine is still with us in all things. And as we begin to turn our attention this day into a mindful state, we become aware of the things around us. We become aware of the things that touch us. We become aware of our thoughts, our ideas. We listen. We respond. We live in the moment. It's beautiful, it's priceless, and it's blessed. And so what I know right here and right now is that all people everywhere are held in the hands and the arms of the divine. All people are loved. All people are blessed. And I send these blessings out across the land and let them circle the earth, knowing that we as a planet are evolving and transforming. And it's beautiful and it's perfect and it's so good. So we just let this time go. We release it in gratitude for the very ability to speak these words, for the very ability to tune in to Spirit. How beautiful this is. How incredible it is. I simply let it go. I let it go and turn it over to the law of mind. I let God. And so it is.
Living moments better left, let go of misery. Change the rules we can't embrace.